Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Kaycee Felton-Lui. The energy leading up to this full moon on Thursday, January 25th, has been intense for me. There's been a lot of change and new experiences, big realizations, a lot of good things, but a lot of heaviness as well. And it's shown me where I've had to let go of certain habits and self-doubt, and that's not usually fun to do. So if you're like me and you've been processing some changes you need to make, some things you're ready to let go of, we're just getting ready to move forward. And I think we need to move forward. This week I saw a very disturbing headline that a bill has been proposed in Kentucky that would decriminalize the use of deadly force against unhoused people. Over the last decade or more, I've watched indifference to homelessness grow among the average person, but more frighteningly, I've witnessed a lot of hostility and outright violence against the poorest people among us, and at a time where a lot of us can barely afford to live. So sadly, I'm not surprised at this point. California, where I'm from, is also looking at legislation that would make it easy to institutionalize people that have no homes. In a country where many of us are struggling to keep up with everything costing more, and a lot of us not making a fraction of what we earn our bosses, this should worry all of us. I think we're way past people with any care for humanity remaining quiet or standing by and letting it happen. Because I don't believe that most of us are safe in a society that has no value for human life. So Pluto is in Aquarius, if you couldn't tell by that speech. But those of us who see what's happening, we need to work together and keep each other safe. So today on the podcast, I talk about this week's full moon in Leo. After that, I have a meditation that I wrote to get you ready for the energy of that full moon. If you're listening to this in the future, this meditation will also work for any time during Pluto in Aquarius, so feel free to revisit it. And after that, I have one of my sponsors from Patreon on the show to talk about the new moon manifesting circle and what we get up to there. We have a lot of energy, some of it quite dramatic this week. And I don't say that to freak you out, not at all, but it will impact each of us individually in our own way because each one of us has our own energy, our own astrology charts. So it's never one size fits all with astrology. The real stuff, anyway. But with the Leo full moon on Thursday, January 25th at 9:53 a.m. Pacific time, this can be larger than life transformational energy. There's an opportunity for those of us who are conscious to lean into this energy to get us ready to move forward in a big way if we release the beliefs, habits, and thought patterns that stand in between us, owning and even taking pride in our individual skills and passions. And leading up to this full moon, you may have found yourself thinking things like, it's never worked out for me before, I'm not where I should be, nobody cares about what I'm good at, I'm not good enough at anything, I'm just one person, nothing I do really matters. The comparisons are holding yourself to really narrow standards that a lot of us internalize because of the culture we live in. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and it's not helping you get anywhere better than where you are now. At its best, Leo energy can be warm, confident, passionate, and willing to do whatever it takes to express and accomplish whatever it's fired up about. Leo has the ability to be so warm that they light up the people around them simply by being who they are. But it's very hard to let your light shine when you're so busy focusing on how not normal you are, or how you're not where you think you're supposed to be, or what's wrong with you, or who's not noticing you in the way that you think you need to be noticed. This full moon is a time to let that go. Release it to the universe or God or whatever you personally find a sense of faith in. Because all that negativity and doubt is distracting you from simply radiating the warmth of what you do have to offer. Those sparks within you that you may be too afraid to give much attention to. This is a time to give them air. It's very hard to grow a fire if you keep stamping out the flame. I've talked about the need for us to build the world we want to see on this podcast before, and I'm sure I will again. But this first full moon of 2024 is a moment to imagine the possibilities you could create for yourself. And we're not separate from the rest of humanity. Being a person is a group project, whether we like it or not. Is it possible to imagine a world where you could be fully, authentically, and joyfully who you are? And could it be a world where all human beings have that same opportunity? I wrote what I'm calling a meditation, but if that word makes you nervous, you can look at this as a visualization exercise. I recommend sitting somewhere quiet and comfortable. Don't do this while driving, but have a place to take or record notes handy for afterwards, because whatever comes up for you in this meditation will be worth revisiting. In fact, my hope is that this exercise stokes the fire within you and inspires you to engage in the world in new ways. Because I believe that creating a new world starts with envisioning one. We are holding hands with the future. So it's time to imagine what it might feel like in your body to be that close, to be there. What if you came to Earth, to this particular life, to exist in this particular body, to be this particular person in this particular time? That you are exactly who you were born to be. You can remind yourself that you are at home in your body with every inhale. With every exhale, tension in your forehead relaxes. Your jaw releases any tightness. Your shoulders are as soft as they've ever been. You breathe in and fill your lungs. As you exhale, any tension melts away. Your breath continues, slow and steady. You reach for a moment of appreciation for all your body has carried you through. At any time it's helpful. I recommend placing a hand over your heart for this exercise. Feel the rhythm of your heart. Each beat reminding you how very alive you are in this moment. Follow the beat of your heart as you imagine that you have everything you need. Food is available to you. There could be community kitchens where you live, where people come together and create meals. You could help with the cooking or the cleaning. We could switch off jobs depending on the day, so it feels more joyful than the chores many of us are used to. Money? It exists, but it's not a burden. It doesn't determine whether someone survives or not. There is plenty to go around when we work together. And you are loved in the most simple ways. You have enough to be generous with yourself and others. And giving love to yourself feels lighter, easier in these conditions. Can you think of something about yourself that warms your heart? Is it the way you smile when something lights you up? The way you help others without having to be asked? Is it how you can find the perfect song to fit the moment? The way you hug someone that you care for? How does it feel in your heart space when you send love to yourself as an act of appreciation? Breathe in deeply and give yourself a moment of thanks for the details that make you who you are. forgetting to experience life as this particular being. Now imagine that you get to learn more about whatever it is that interests you. You have access to information, teachers, and others who want to learn with you too. It's never about passing tests or getting it all right. It's about your curiosity and empowering you to do whatever it is you want to do in the world. And it's a curiosity that all people are encouraged in and entitled to. There is no barrier to understanding here. What would it feel like if you and all people could learn and communicate freely? If you didn't have to earn the right to be in dialogue with others, to expand your mind. Breathe in deeply and take a moment to appreciate your desire to know more, to expand and interact and grow. How does your heart space feel at the idea of barriers to information simply disappearing? Can you find a sense of freedom with the possibilities? Now imagine that you have the ability to feel your feelings without judgment or shame. There are no repercussions for simply feeling sad, anxious, hurt, excited, enthusiastic, even angry. The people around you understand that everyone has feelings, that they change and flow and come and go. They are considered neither good nor bad. They simply are until the next feeling arrives. You are free to experience the emotions as they come. If you are simply not in the mood for something, there is understanding and grace. And you give that to others as well. It's simply a part of our shared humanity. And in moments of pain and struggle, you are supported. There is appropriate help when you ask for it. What would it look like if there was no stigma around simply feeling how you feel, around receiving real support in the moments where you don't want to do it alone? Because no one should have to. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, feel into your heart space. What does your heart say would be possible for you with total emotional liberation? Now, here imagine that you can express yourself however you wish, so long as it does not cause harm to others. You are able to play and create as you are inspired. You can be experimental. In fact, it's encouraged. If something you try brings you joy, it's considered worthwhile. There is no diminishing of pleasure for pleasure's sake. Being an adult doesn't represent a death to playfulness. In fact, play never ends. As you inhale, imagine the possibilities if you created without hesitation. As you exhale, return to your heart space. Feel into what you might do if you gave yourself permission to follow your joy. Now imagine that your day-to-day life is whatever you make it. Yes, there is work to be done. The tending and sorting and caring that comes with living life in this human body. But none of it falls all on your shoulders. We help one another, not because we have to, but because we want to. Because that's just how life is, living near other human beings. There are systems in place so that nobody goes without due to their own abilities. We each contribute in our own way. And the work is not draining because it has meaning and purpose. Remember, you have everything you need here. The only work that exists is necessary or joyful, and often it is both. If you are sick, you can see a doctor. Insurance and medical bills are a thing of the past. No one is denied care because we understand healthcare as a human right. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, connect again to your heart space. Feel into the possibilities of a life where your days are your own, where meaning and purpose are always within reach. Now imagine that your relationships are defined by a sense of respect and cooperation. That you see one another as individuals with different needs, desires, and experiences that come together. Yes, sometimes there are disagreements and misunderstandings, of course. We are human after all. But you hear one another out. That you practice and grow in communication as each relationship evolves. That even if you grow apart, the underlying respect never disappears. Because you understand the ebb and flow of life. And there is a desire for a mutual peace, regardless of how any given relationship evolves. Breathe in deeply. Take a moment to appreciate your desire to know others, to grow and cooperate side by side. As you exhale, feel into your heart space. What does your heart say is possible when you come to relationships with a sense of openness and collaboration? Imagine that beyond those close relationships, you are part of a larger community. In fact, it may be more than one community. But in all of them, you have the opportunity to interact with people with different life experiences, different backgrounds, different skills, knowledge, and expertise. Despite your differences, you find ways to communicate and work together, to share information and resources, to build things that serve the community at large, to join together with other groups to accomplish even bigger projects, to learn from one another. No, it's not always easy. Not everyone gets along all the time. But there are processes in place to work through disagreements. And seeing things differently isn't an excuse for violence, insult, or banishment. That's just not how we do things anymore, because we've seen just how much it costs us all. We learn from our history, our mistakes, our challenges. We grow in different ways, but we grow together. The success of one is seen as the success of all. There is no fight to the top, because we know now that if one shines, we all shine. There is no top. There is only inspiration. We all benefit from the beauty, the pleasure, the joy that any of us shares. Inhale deeply and imagine what you might aspire to, knowing that when you reach for the stars, we all share in that blessing. As you exhale, feel into your heart space as you acknowledge the limitless possibilities. What would you reach for, knowing that so much is possible, if only you can let yourself imagine it? Now imagine yourself as a single facet on the diamond that is this universe. So vast that it feels so far beyond our comprehension. And yet, here you are. As precious as any other facet of the universe. As brilliant and luminous and revealing of the nature of this existence as a rare gem. You've been given the gift of experiencing this life as you. And know that there is no separation between you and the cosmos. When you look up at the stars, can you see aspects of yourself looking back? Inhale as you recognize that you are just as vast and mysterious. As you exhale, feel into your heart space. Can you feel it expand as you envision all of the possibilities? Rest here a moment and savor the warmth, the joy. As you continue to breathe deeply and slowly, gently guide yourself back to the present moment, to this reality. Invite that feeling in your heart to remain. Know that you can revisit it and cultivate it whenever you'd like. Know that you can share in it with others in ways you haven't yet imagined. When you're ready, be sure to document what came up for you during this meditation. What visions do you have for a more joyful future, for yourself, and for human beings as a collective? What ideas do you have for realizing these visions in your everyday life? What connections would you like to build to help build these visions into reality? How will you explore these feelings during this Leo full moon and beyond? This is only a starting point, so make sure that you reconnect with your heart whenever you need to be reminded that a better world is possible. Remember that you are always holding hands with the future. What do you want that to feel like? We have a very special returning guest for Petty Astrology fans from season 1, where we talked about the astrology of Love Island. Our bombshell Nick is back to talk about the new moon manifesting circle that we have in Patreon. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, you are a sponsor of mine on Patreon, and it's really important to me that this podcast be somewhat of a community. I mean, not everybody that listens to the podcast may be into that, but my hope is that a good community grows out of the podcast, and it seems like it's already happening. So I really appreciate you and the other sponsors that have backed me in doing this. And it does take a lot of time and energy to create a podcast. And so having people be willing to sponsor what I'm doing means a lot to me. And one of the ways that I've been creating community around the podcast is I started a new moon manifesting circle in Patreon. The new moon happens once a month. And so basically, I took this as an opportunity to talk about the astrology of the new moon because each new moon has its own flavor and way to approach it. But new moons are really about planting seeds. And so it's a great energy to manifest whatever it is you are trying to manifest. And I know people are really interested in manifesting right now and they don't quite know what that means, but my goal was to use this circle to talk about that astrology just kind of in a basic way. Like, nobody needs to know anything about astrology to be a part of the circle. But I do a little bit of teaching at the beginning, and then we have a circle. We set our intentions, and I help people come up with intentions if they need. I create a list of questions and a framework to approach setting those intentions so you can really take advantage of the specific energy of each new moon. And you got to be there for the first meeting. So I thought it would be good to have you on to talk about like what that experience was like.
I did, and it was great, actually. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of yours and a friend, but I find I have a really hard time doing journaling and setting intentions. So to have a space in which to do that with other people and kind of get inspired by what other people are also setting intentions for felt really good. And then you had those awesome slides, and I wrote down those questions, and I did actually reflect on them. I went afterwards and really went through and journaled, and it brought up more questions, which brought up more intentions, which was really cool.
Oh, I love that. I love that you referred back to it. Yeah, so the point of these sessions is to get together, talk about astrology. Everybody that is a part of the podcast, has some interest in astrology, I think. So it's an opportunity for me to share what I know and be very practical about it, right? Like, I just want it to be useful information. And a lot of times with astrology, there can be a lot of astrologicalese, it's just kind of word salad, and it can be hard to understand. Even if you are an astrologer, like sometimes I hear stuff and I'm like, I have no idea where you're even getting any of that. But, that's a subject for another day. So the point is to make this very practical, very helpful, very functional astrology, which is my favorite kind of astrology, because like, what the hell is the point if you can't use it?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad to hear that it was helpful for you. I think that a lot of people that are in this group are more introverted, myself included. Like, I'm not necessarily the biggest joiner. And so another goal that I had with the group is that we're in this very interesting time in the world. And of course, there's a lot going on in the world. And with Pluto being in Aquarius, this is a time where we're really going to need to lean into group work. We're going to lean into other people. So it felt like, as part of the Patreon, I really wanted to create a space for people to get together, to talk about the things that they're working on in real life, which is funny because I think the internet is also real life, but you know what I mean, offline, and to do it in a way that emphasizes our individual spiritual connection. Because I think that when we go out into the world and we're not necessarily around people that we have that kind of alignment with, it can take a toll on us energetically. And I feel like it's a good place to kind of refuel that with other people.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are actually kind of searching for community right now and feel really overwhelmed about where to start. And especially if you're more inclined to astrology or anything kind of metaphysical, you don't necessarily know if you're going to come out of that closet with just anybody in everyday life. So to kind of have that already be a meeting place for people makes it way more comfortable to be yourself. And I do have to say, you made a very safe space to kind of explore that and make it practical. Like, as you were saying, it kind of can be a little too woo-woo sometimes when you read horoscopes. It's like, just follow your heart. But how do I follow?
Just follow.
Yeah, just follow. Off the bridge. Go. No, I'm kidding. But to have that practicality met with the magic of the mundane and kind of just seeing where it goes is, I think, really cool.
It's something that my mentor, Lori Rivers, says all the time. We need to connect with people that are like-hearted and not necessarily like-minded. And I think that we have both in this group in a lot of ways. I'm sure we're not all identical thinkers, but there is enough alignment where it really does feel like a safe space. And everybody that is a part of it so far is, really committed to that. And I think really understands what we're doing here, what we're trying to do together. And you don't need to manifest with other people. It's definitely not a requirement. And in fact, a lot of that practical groundwork, it just happens on an individual basis. But one thing that we can learn from astrology is that when you're in a group, when you're in a community with other people, it can be very inspiring, and you kind of bounce ideas off of each other. You can support one another in emotional ways. You can support each other in material ways. But even just having that supportive energy in the moment when we're kind of sharing these really personal things about ourselves, right? Like, setting intentions is a really personal thing because you're kind of revealing what you're aspiring to, and it can feel really vulnerable. That's actually really on theme, I think, for this upcoming full moon too, is that it is a little bit risky to put yourself out there and, meet new people and be in a new environment and, be on a Zoom meeting with strangers. Oh my gosh. So it is really important to me that it be a safe space, that it be a comfortable space for us to learn and grow. And my hope is that we take that group energy that we kind of foster together and we take it back into our in-person lives as well, right? And that we build communities in person as well as we go forward. Mm-hmm. And I think it's it's a really potentially powerful thing, I think, if we can kind of refill on a monthly basis with this lovely group energy. We had the first meeting and I assumed that it would go well. I knew the people that were going to be coming into it at least a little bit before we met for the first time. So I knew that we were going to have a nice time together, but it really far exceeded my expectations in terms of how enthusiastic people were, how supportive people were. So I really wanted to make sure that people knew that the New Moon Manifesting Circle exists and that it is available for people to join if that is something that sounds interesting to them.
If you're introverted, as you've said, and I am, you're still a little bit shy meeting new people and kind of exposing that underbelly with your intentions. But it was such good energy that I didn't mind sharing that and like celebrating everybody else with sharing their own. It's almost like you get courage from other people's courage as well. And it just kind of is catching. Everybody just moves with it and it grows, which is really nice.
That was something that I noticed from my personal life, which was very influential in me starting this group, was having that group of people on a spiritual level to connect with has helped me individually really kind of reach for the stars, have bigger aspirations, dream bigger, think that my ideas were possible. I mean, the fact that I'm even sitting here doing this podcast is in part facilitated by the fact that I had so many people supporting me in doing this, including you. So I've seen what it can do for me, and I would like it to be available for other people too, and so that they can also have that experience and then replicate it in other areas of their life, because I don't think this is the only space we can have this kind of interaction in, and I want people to be inspired by it, inspired on a personal level and inspired on a collective level. So that's really my goal with the New Moon Manifesting Circle.
I think it's on its way to being a really great thing because it's set with the purest of intentions as well. And you can feel that other people are there to kind of do exactly what you said. And it does. People don't think that one small thing can kind of have a ripple effect, but it does bleed into other parts of your life. And it makes you more bold, which is what I think we need going forward.
Absolutely. So it's a space for nourishment. And my hope is that over time, because again, we meet once a month. So, we get to touch base on a monthly basis, and it will be really exciting to see the progress that each of us make as individuals. I think that will be even more supportive energy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking 6 months down the line, we look back at the first month's meeting and we're going to see, so many of us are going to be making progress on those initial intentions that we set. We're going to be manifesting. We're going to see those manifestations out in the world and not just in our heads or, in our notebooks or wherever it is. So that's the goal with this is really it's community. It's also about inspiration and kind of fortifying us for, the rest of our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. I get an image of a fountain going into water pouring into all these little cups, but the cups all fill each other simultaneously. So it's like we're all filling our own, but each other.
That's beautiful. That's a great image for kind of what we do there. So I appreciate you coming on to talk about your experience and for your endorsement. If you're a sponsor over on Patreon, you have access to the meditation audio as its very own podcast, so you can revisit it without having to skip around. Don't forget, Patreon sponsors also have access to the Petty Astrology Advice Hotline, where I answer your personal astrology inquiries right here on the show. If you haven't already signed up for updates about the podcast or to submit your own suggestions for future podcast topics, you can do that on Patreon as well. It's free. This episode was produced by Lori Rivers and Elena Tunder and brought to you by my sponsors on Patreon.